Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good morning, everybody. July 10th, Friday. I'm not really sure what's going to happen today, but let's show you where we're at. So yesterday, we had a news story come through about the Supreme Court case with Donald Trump and his financial records. We were initially thought from the headlines that were given that they were forcing Donald Trump to release his returns. That turned out to be false. In fact, the court case pretty much guarantees that Donald Trump isn't going to have to release anything before the election. So when we were down here at 31.12, which was that day's kind of downside 100% price target, based off of, not price target, but like expected move, I said, hey, I think we actually reverse here, and I probably will end the week above that. Well, I was probably overstepping my predictive abilities to say that we'll end the week above 31.12 because we did retrace it up to the 31.50, but then since then we've kind of come down again. So as to whether or not we end the week above 31.12, I don't know. I'm gonna stick to it because I said, hey, I made a prediction. I'm gonna stick to it, but at this point, I think it's kind of just up to fate whether or not it happens. I don't have anything to tell me that we will or will not end above that. Pretty choppy overnight. I don't really see any like huge headlines to be driving that, but after a move like that, there's going to be oscillations. So there you have it. But I didn't catch any specific headline that made me believe that this was highly likely or that this was significantly news driven, so it could just be market oscillations. Now, something I find concerning is when we come over here and we look at treasuries are still very high. Very high. In fact, they're pretty much record lows. So that's really great for my interest rate, but I don't really know why it's up there. Especially since all of the days when I thought this week we had some buy side imbalance and that we were likely to move up, that they sold it first and then this huge move up. So I don't know. That does seem a little bit too high to me though. Let's come over here in oil. In oil, we had a pretty significant drop there. Okay. And in gold kind of, I don't know. Gold saw a drop yesterday, but then, this gold is just always doing random crap. I'm telling you, mostly speculation over there. Mostly speculation. Also, when we come and we look at the overnight movement, not really a lot of participation. All right. 2000s. So, that's kind of where we're at. I don't know if we'll get good setups today or not. It's going to be really interesting. I'll tell you, one thing is that I do see a lot of, how do I put this? I guess I can just call it sentiment. I seem to be seeing a lot of coronavirus related negative sentiment over the past few days, and it's been increasing yesterday. I don't think that the numbers really support that at the moment. We did have some headlines yesterday. So, for instance, at the bottom, something I missed was that after we hit the 31.12, we did go much lower than that. We did hit 3105. And that was about the time that I think the Arizona numbers got released. So there was some numbers that were negative. I'm having a really hard time dealing with the coronavirus number changes because media is not reporting consistent numbers. One day they care about the number of cases versus the 10-day average, and then the next day they care about the deaths, and it's like they're changing the target on you. It feels like manipulation to keep this story in the forefront of people's minds. But here's how I'm looking at it right now. Um, 2 or 3 weeks ago, when we started to see significant rises in some of these states like Florida, Texas, Arizona, and California, that was, at that point you could have said, okay, here is the current rate of transmission and everything else like that, and so we're going to get another curve. Okay. And if you calculate that curve out, it's supposed to be peaking right now. So we should expect to see relatively high coronavirus numbers. And again, they tend to be lower at the beginning of the week and higher at the end of the week. So we shouldn't be surprised to see somewhat higher coronavirus numbers today. I think that's why, other than that release from the Arizona numbers, that we're not really seeing huge reactions to it in the markets. Okay. But we're supposed to be peaking. So if we get into next week and the week afterwards, and those numbers aren't a lot better, oh dear. Wonder what that was. I could hear it must have been something outside. But anyways, if we get into that next week and it doesn't change, that's then when I think that the market would start to react to it. Yeah, that must be a buzzsaw outside or something. That's kind of interesting. All right, well, got to turn on text to speech. Oh yeah, and then another thing that we got to get into is I did a webinar yesterday. Financial Juice has been putting together their own pro squawk service. They are offering it. Actually, I'll give you guys the link. I'm not I don't have a, what do we call it? I don't have an affiliate with them or anything like that, but I am quite impressed by what they put together. If at some point they have an affiliate program, I'll probably try to do it. But they're offering a squawk service. Normally, a good squawk service, it's $150 to $300. They're going to be offering their service for $70 a month. And if you get in it right now, which is what I did, you can get a lifetime subscription for $700. So they're kind of looking to raise money to do some of their things. So this is kind of one of those things where it's like, I would really like to see a service like this help people out. So I jumped at the opportunity, and so that's also kind of why I kind of want to promote it a little bit. Oh yeah, that was like a buzzsaw outside. What the heck? It's funny because I don't know if you can hear it, but I can like feel it through the table. Anyways, so yeah, you can give that link a look. I actually, oh, I didn't turn it on. I should have turned this on. Well, hopefully I can turning it on won't affect things too much. Let's see here. Yeah, there's that. Because I don't have it on yet. Okay.
952 spot 9.
Okay. So that is not what we wanted. Oh yeah, and then we need to look. We do have some numbers, right? PPI. Okay, so we're getting the PPI in, and it was negative spot 3 versus an expected spot 1. Yeah, I think that could move the markets up a little bit. Year over year, negative spot 8 versus an expected negative spot 2. Yeah, I don't know if this. Oh dear, hold on. There we go. I don't know if this really affects things, but if this should really have a huge impact on the market, but it looks like the numbers are pretty good and the market is rising on it. So the issue is that I need to come into sound settings and need to change this to go to cable input. Right.
And currently see some whips or
Okay. So that's not right per se. Oh, you know what? We need one of these over here. Well, the number is good in that interest rates can continue to be low, right? Okay, so where was I?
Speculator Seth Day Trading says test.
Oh, you know what? I think it's like that. I think that's what I need. So now you should be able to hear that.
Speculator Seth Day Trading says test.
Yes. And if they talk, actually, we'll just do it from here. I'll just go to YouTube, for instance. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, but now I can't hear it. Nope, that's not what we want either. Oh, maybe I had this set up at one time and I just like everybody says test. Thanks, guys. I had this set up and working at one
Ari
point,
Edelson says good morning everyone.
and I completely forget how I did it. So I thought that I was doing this to cable output, But maybe I need to
Kaplan says US has lots of excess capacity. I expect disinflation. He is currently live on Fox Business. Go over that last headline. That's Fed Kaplan saying that the US has lots of excess capacity, Nick, and he expects disinflation.
So now,
Kevin Wimmer says, is this the Joe Biden Stettler add-on?
oh, so you're probably getting noise there, huh?
This video unboxing the Odyssey G9 is sponsored by
That's
Samsung.
funny. You guys can
This
hear
is
it,
one of the
and
most
I
exciting
can't. Ah, that's it right there. But now, yeah, you don't hear that. Yeah, well, they seem to be moving up again. I don't, this one, it does look like it could a good kick to start, but what the heck? Oh, that is a good run right there, folks. Look at that. We getting some more news or something? Oh, just Fed's Kaplan saying stuff. Sees growth in quarter 3 and 4 following the steep quarter 2 drop. Gilead Remdesivir associated with a 62% risk cut in mortality. Cool. Like, gold killing it again. Now they're moving up a little bit. I wouldn't say it's too huge yet, but it does look like it could be the start of something. Okay, I need to like sit down and focus. This is cable output. So this I think should go to default. Well, look at it go. Must have said something really. If we all wore masks, US growth would be faster? Well, I was saying I don't know if we're really going to stay above my 3112, but right now it looks really good. They need to get above 3150 is a key level too that I want to see them above, right? Okay, so I think that I need it to be that all of this goes to here. Okay.
Sunday Driver says at Kenny Desmit, I think 2021 is the beginning of everything SHTF. Depression, political and social chaos.
Oh, which one is which? Settings? That is voice meter aux.
Hi.
No.
No problem. It's 49 inches, which is basically the equivalent.
So this needs to be the cable input. Okay. And no. There we go. Okay, so you guys can't hear that, but you can hear.
Sunday Driver says lol.
Now it works. Okay, now we're good. I think we're good now. So I think that the move that we're seeing in the E-mini is more off of the Federal Reserve speaker right now.
Kenny Desmit says yeah, so do I, but when that happens the Fed is able to print more money, right?
Well, I don't think it has
Kenny Desmit
anything
says I
to do
am
with
really
that.
not good at economics, so that why I ask a lot.
So I think the reason why the market is reacting to his comments is because the people at the Federal Reserve are also considered like the best economists. So if he comes in and he says, "Oh hey, we're doing pretty good. The Federal Reserve's actions are appropriate right now," which is what he's saying, then everybody says, "Oh okay, like everything's fine. We should be safe to buy," right? And if he comes out and he says, "Oh, the situation is bad," I think that the earnings aren't going to be as good as next, then they would go down because it's like, think of it as like an analyst coming out. But he's not really saying anything that indicates like a change in Federal Reserve policy, other than perhaps that he's saying right now that the current policy is.
Sunday Driver says Fed printing money can
sensible.
only do so much. The Trump approach has been, in my view, a shipwreck. They'll eventually have to just give yang bucks to everyone until the chaos subsides.
I don't know about that. The thing is that we've seen this before, right? Where the Federal Reserve is really pumping money in, and the thing is that there are some long-term consequences to that in the form of lower growth and low inflation. and the economy never really recovered and picked up. But it doesn't have to mean a crash. In fact, it really kicks the can down the road again. So I don't see anything on the horizon at the moment that means that things are going to really fall apart. If for instance there was a real second wave, because like what we have right now, based on projections, is going to subside. Okay, but if the United States had a true second wave that was like as bad as the New York wave, then and it caused the stock market to go down again, then at that point, then we could have some real problems. Because the Federal Reserve would not be able to print enough money to keep things up. And they're already heavily committed. So that could be a real disaster. Or, geez. One of the things I find interesting is that the market seems to be pretty confident about that there will be another stimulus, even though when you look at the politics of it, they don't agree on what it's going to be at all. And they seem really far away from a stimulus. But then also it's kind of like, well, things aren't very good if we really need another stimulus right now, but aren't, isn't it? So, let's see. Okay. So I don't know if it get if I'm hearing my squawk correctly or not, because he hasn't said anything recently, but I think we're all fine. Rabobank, suddenly lots of things might just matter at once. Yeah, so here's another thing that I've been noticing that you think, well, go ahead.
Sunday Driver says, isn't Texas starting to show scary increases in new deaths? And didn't you, Seth, just outline why Yang Bucks will be necessary? In effect, a NYC-style second wave.
No, because, you know what, you probably missed the beginning part. So when we saw a rise in cases in Texas and Florida, like 2-3 weeks ago, that was, essentially saying, okay, we're having a start of a second wave. You can go in and you can calculate what, the spread of it is and all of these sorts of things and get a pretty good idea of what the curve is going to be. And as of late, it's followed what that curve is supposed to be pretty well. Like I said, there's kind of this inefficiency that the market hasn't completely picked up on, where the cases are lower at the beginning of the week and higher at the end of the week. But no, this week it hasn't seemed to affected them too much. I think that maybe they're kind of getting over that. Okay, but we're right now at that peak, or what should be that peak. So the numbers that you saw yesterday, you notice that the market reacted to the Arizona case numbers, but you notice that the market was not really that uppity about it. And they haven't been uppity about the numbers almost all week. And that's because the market already expects to have high numbers. If next week the numbers were continued to be higher, then the market would freak out. Because that expected scenario turns out to be wrong. But at the moment, what you're going to get is you're going to get a high number of cases that Wall Street expects, but that the news is going to play up really high. That's why one of the things you'll notice is that they always change what number
the Fed
it
are
is.
saying that everything is stable right now, but maybe it's not. Kenny Desmet says, I am sure that the Fed don't want everyone to become rich. They could be lying. I am kinda paranoid though.
Right.
Tongue out.
Lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. So you'll notice that when numbers are released, news keeps changing which metric they focus on. So 3 weeks ago, it was the number of new cases compared to the rise or whatever. Now, because we're at the peak and that number of new cases is kind of trailing off, they're focusing more on the deaths, which is something that we would know would rise anyways because of the rise in new cases, right? See, they change it so that
Sunday
you get
Driver
freaked
says
out.
scroll down and look at TX daily deaths. Spiking up.
Again, expected. Expected. Do you understand what the word expected means? Oh, so my squawk would just hit over the wire this story that Remdesivir has like a 62% thing of, of improving the mortality of it, and they're like 10 minutes late on that one. Sorry guys. Let's see, your live squawk is tweeting here. New analysis of compassionate use program showed 83% of pediatric patients and 92% of pregnant and postpartum women with spectrum of disease severity recovered by day 28. So they're just going through like all of the stats about it. The market, probably part of this could be due to Remdesivir, right? Anytime that there's news about therapeutic treatments and stuff, the market loves that, right? Anyways, so I guess the question would be, what would be the numbers today? What would be the expectation, and what would you need to see higher today? Well, I think that you would have to beat the 10-day average by a larger percentage than they did yesterday for them to panic about that.
Sunday Driver says I kept hearing people saying, look, the deaths are going down while cases go up. It's over. I don't think the market is expecting massive spikes in deaths.
Well, and what we're getting is not necessarily a massive spike in deaths. One of the other things that I find kind of funny is that I was reading headlines where they were like, oh, a huge spike in deaths in this state. And I look at it and it's like, oh, they had 15 deaths today instead of the average 10. Whoop-de-doo. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I don't know. This is one of those things where you really got to dive into the number and sit down and say, what is my expectation of what it's going to be and what is actually being reported, and how different are they, rather than listen to the media headline, because the media headline is all about getting clicks. So like I said, they'll change their focus from new cases to deaths. Let me tell you what. So here's another thing. From market perspective, I don't think that deaths necessarily matters, because it's a trailing metric, right? You get new cases, these rise, and then deaths 2 weeks later, these rise. So when you get new deaths, expected. It's expected. It's a lagging indicator. New cases is the leading indicator. New cases is the one that you probably want to pay attention to. And that's why I say the market is reacting the way that it is right now, because they believe that new cases
Sunday Driver says new COVID
peaking.
hospitalizations are the thing, I think, to look at. Deaths follow 2 to 4 weeks following hospitalizations.
Yeah, well, hospitalizations is the thing that really determines whether or not states will shut back down, right? But it is also a lagging indicator. So you can kind of look at the ICU capacity and the number of new cases and determine how many of those new cases result in new hospitalizations. And so again, here's a situation where you're going to get a number that is expected, right? Unless the new cases trails much higher than that expectation is. I don't know. But that's where it gets really difficult for us as retail traders, right? Because normally you get like an economic number and it's just this clear number. Okay, inflation.
Gary Rich
Negative
says
spot
stop,
3
stop,
versus
someone
spot
shoot
1.
me in the head.
Negative spot 3 versus a spot 1. Like we know what the street expectation is for most of these economic numbers, and for the coronavirus numbers, there is a Wall Street expectation, but it's not communicated. So you can point to, if you go to Zero Hedge, they have a daily article about this, and they kind of post the things that Wall Street is sharing. For instance, Goldman Sachs has this huge heat map that shows all of the statistics and very quickly allows you to see which states are spiking and which metrics and things like that. Okay. But then there's also this analysis from JP Morgan that is
Sunday
very
Driver
widely
says, to be
followed.
honest, I think most states are taking the all fuck it approach and will stay open no matter what.
Yeah, probably. Well, like I said, right now we're getting a spike. It's still like within their, except they're kind of like on the edge, but they're saying, oh, you know what, we did okay. So it could very well be the case. And then what I was about to say is that there's an analyst opinion from, I believe it was JP Morgan, that's been widely followed, because they were the ones that said that this spike was going to happen. They said, hey, when the states reopen, you will see a rise in cases, but you're going to see the rise in cases 2 weeks later than when everybody expects, because it takes time for the rate of transmissibility to return back up. And that ended up being correct. So now they're the ones that are saying that new cases in the United States overall are going to spike this week. They said that Thursday was a spike. So again, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the number is going to be next week. I'm just telling you what the expectation is and why the market is reacting to the numbers that have been released thus far the way that they are. It is because they expect right now to be the peak of the spike. And so it would require numbers remaining elevated, remaining elevated and continuing to rise into next week for the markets to really take heed. At the moment, though, I don't know. You got Remdesivir news coming out. I don't. That's been one that I don't think we fight. So to my prediction that we made 31-12, and I know Gary was saying like, hey, do you want to do a bet? I'm not going to hold you to that, because we didn't like. I ended the stream before we said anything. I was willing to take you up on that. Like if we get below 31-12, you know, $50, but I won't hold you
Gary
to
Rich
it.
says get ready, dummies. Earnings matter next week. The markets dumped yesterday due to banks.
You think so? Well,
Sunday Driver says, I think it takes a bit longer for Wu flu to get sufficiently spread than people think. Once it does, it's a real bear to back it down.
Gary Rich says it was posted all over the news.
You're right. I'm sure that was maybe one factor. Mom has just wanted to look at our buddies over at Goldman. Okay, so when you look at Goldman, they did. I mean,
Sunday
obviously
Driver
they
says,
came
I
down
still
with the
think
rest of the
negative rates
market.
are an inevitability. How are banks going to manage that? Expect major dislocations.
Probably not. I really don't think that they're ever going to do it. I think that you just want to believe that negative rates are an inevitability because your view of the world is so negative.
I2 Yanth Great says MMT is God's slightly smiling face.
But I really don't see how you can read all of the comments from the Federal Reserve on negative interest rates and think that they're going to take their interest rates negative. the market keeps trying to bully them into it, but I really don't think they're going to do it. Well, Goldman came down and didn't recover, but really we should be looking at like the leader in the group. Yeah, about the same thing. So, okay. Well, the banks did get hit. Overall, I think that
Sunday Driver says lol, I am negative.
These results from the Remdesivir trial that are coming out right now are really good. Going back to where we were at. You might be right about next week. I mean, I don't know where we're going to be next week. And I do think that there could be a reckoning coming when earnings come along.
Sunday Driver says I don't believe a word the Fed says. I believe negative rates are coming.
Okay. But for this week, I don't know. So I said at the beginning, I don't think Gary was here, but I said at the beginning, I was talking about my call that I made earlier about that we
Gary
should
Rich
end the
says
week
look
above
at the calendar,
3112.
the banks kick it off. I2 Yanth Great says yes, but why?
I'm sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained today. I'm just kind of trying to adjust to my new setup. I was saying at the beginning, it looks like that my trade was correct, but that trying to say that it was going to carry into the weekend was probably a bigger trade than I could make with the information that I had. Because what happened was we did retrace that move and we went back to 3150. And then since then there we've kind of been a little bit back and forth. But now given the fact that we have Remdesivir news moving the market, I think that our trade stands a pretty good chance now, especially since we already have a good 30 points buffer baked into it, right? But we're going to be at the mercy of does more bad news come out, because like sure, earnings bad next week, but people have their certain expectations set right now. Maybe some traders are trying to front run some bad news, but I don't know if that alone would be enough to just drive us into a new low for the week, So even though I think, so at the beginning of the session, I was saying probably it's random as to whether or not we hold it or not. Now we got Remdesivir news that improves our chances, but ultimately we could see more news, and we're probably at the mercy of the market. But now I'm willing to stick to it. 3112. It's the number that we're seeing. I want. My prediction was that the market will close above 3112 on today. So sticking to it. Trump says Biden has been brainwashed. He's been taken over by the radical left. Well,
Vincenzo C says, Seth, do you have a good movie recommendation we may have not seen for the weekend?
I don't know. You know what I watched yesterday? I watched Starship Troopers is on Netflix. That was a fun movie. They should remake that movie. I bet you they could do a way better job. Like the technology has improved, Okay, not quite. Oh, actually, they did break it. Yep, there you go. Okay, another high. I don't know. So here's let me see. I want to give you guys a chance to clarify. Do you think that today will be a negative day on the E-mini? Because the way that you guys are talking and arguing with me has led me to the impression that you are all bearish on the index right now. And I'm sitting here looking at it like, I feel pretty good about this trade. 31.12, hold it into Friday. 30 points, that's pretty good. I don't know what the average would be for a trade like that, though, for a whole day, Well, actually, for a whole day, you should expect 50. Over 50 handles. So maybe it's not quite performing as well as we would like. But hey, with Remdesivir news coming out, right? I don't know. I don't think I have seen a day where there's been news about vaccines or therapeutic treatments for coronavirus that were positive where we didn't see a huge rise. In fact, there have been situations where we got news about a therapeutic treatment that wasn't actually that good or was actually negative, and they still moved up.
Everyone thought the market was gonna crash before COVID. It didn't. Then COVID came and everyone said it wouldn't crash. It's just a little virus. Then it crashed. Now they all think it will.
Yeah, I don't know.
I2 Yanth Great says crash again, but there's literally no reason why, just like before COVID.
There's been different groups of people that believe different things. I was of the opinion before that there was no reason that the bull run couldn't continue. When the coronavirus hit, I felt like it was probably going to be a short-term impact. And it wasn't until Donald Trump started saying things to shut down that I changed my view and realized that we were going to have a real crash. In fact, I specifically remember... Hold on. I specifically remember saying that we won't have an actual recession, that the market will probably come back a little bit, but that we will narrowly avoid a recession, which was clearly wrong, right?
I2 Yanth Great says, yeah, I bet our markets will just continue on a trajectory up like COVID never happened.
Good.
I2 Yanth Great says Powell saved us this time, unlike in 2008.
Yeah, well, that could be the case. It does seem like that the Federal Reserve acted so aggressively and quickly enough. Although some would argue maybe it wasn't quickly enough because there really was some ugly days down there at the bottom of the pandemic. And I remember when all those days happened thinking that this is all overdone. But but I don't know. I mean, the thing is that on the longer term perspective, at this moment, I don't think I could say that I believe that there's going to be another crash or something, although it's certainly a possibility. And I am underweight the market because I don't like the valuations. And this is the larger problem, is that the price earnings ratio that people are asking for are just way overdone. And I don't know if the market has to come back when earnings start, but I think that the way that the numbers work is that over the long run, that the growth that you're actually going to see isn't very good. So, whatever. I mean, that's kind of the way that it works. So they're not necessarily buying stocks because they think the growth forecast for stocks is super great. They're buying stocks because they don't really have any other alternative. And,
Gary Rich says, pay up fools, the multiples have always been high.
Well, that's true. Well, it's not that they've always been high, but the way that the monetary policy has been working is forcing people into stocks and causing them to pay up. Although, the thing is that in the recent environment that we've had, the earnings for stocks have ended up being pretty good. I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case in the future. I do think before we saw like overall GDP growth pretty low before, and I think that what we're going to see in the next market regime is that they will continue to be even lower. It'll still be growth, but it will be pretty unimpressive for a long time until we get interest rates back up to a spot where, and we get the debt paid off to a spot where we can actually get that, because it's a drag on the economy.
Sunday Driver says home and commercial real estate have not been taken down. They will. When that happens, everything will spiral. I'm still amazed at how much the economy depends on real estate.
Well, I tell you what, that one is interesting because there's been some talk about real estate falling apart for a long time.
RJ Wheels
now.
says totally agree. Commercial real estate has to fall.
So I think that a lot of people
Gary
initially
Rich says, are you nuts? Deficits don't matter to politicians.
What does that have to do with anything, Gary? No, on the real estate, people have been saying since the height of the coronavirus crisis that there's going to have to be some sort of a big reckoning with real estate. I think that because of all of the support that they've been giving and all of that, that maybe the people that initially thought that just have to push their timetables back. Who knows what Congress does? Does Congress extend the unemployment benefits? If they extend the unemployment benefits, then maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. That would probably be the big question on it, right? Because otherwise, people were saying that, at the end of the month that we're going to have a real disaster on our hands, right? But that one is, again, it's like, you got to remember everything the market prices in its expectation. So for us to see the markets react to it, we would want to see news that changes their expectation. So I don't know. We are seeing some like in New York, for instance, they're starting to see some unfortunate numbers. Let's call it that. But the market's not reacting to it, so I can only assume that was part of their expectation.
Sunday Driver says real estate lags. The valuations are sticky. It's coming. There are so many people not paying rent at the moment. This Wile E. Coyote Levitation Act can't last forever.
I2 Yanth Great says the thing is, everyone thinks we will just be spinning our wheels for the next 3 years, but they aren't accounting for some possible big technology improvements booms. No new tech will mean slow grout.
Well, even if we do get, new tech innovations, so here's another issue, is that you're going to see a big dichotomy in the economy, right? Big tech companies that make up the NASDAQ, it's very clear from what we're seeing that they haven't been harmed very much from the coronavirus, and they have a very bright future ahead of them. But the rest of the economy, not so much, right? Wow. That was another pretty good push, and they pulled back.
Gary Rich says listening to Seth explain economic or monetary policy, please.
Well, you know what, Gary? All I can say is that it's above 3112, so you can shut the fuck up until it's below it. Because I'm just saying, you're like, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I hear a lot of criticism, but not a lot of like actual backup. Like, okay, so here would be an actual like sensible analysis of something. Like, it's really easy to just be an naysayer. So I don't want to be like, oh man, this is kind of tough because it's like I appreciate having Gary around and he's been useful. I don't want to say useful. That's not very sensitive. I think he's been a really great contributor to the channel. But when you say things like that, how does that make me feel? It's like, fuck you, dude. I have a certain analysis. You have a different analysis, then let's hear it. And then I'll tell you why I think it's wrong. That's the way it works, right? That's the way the debate works.
I2 Yanth Great says I'm having fun. 0.
I'm having fun. I enjoy it.
Pete Pink says national debt is kinda an arbitrary number though. Gary Rich says you are nothing but an irritant at times.
Okay. Well, I really hope that we close above 3112. I have my ego invested in it now. That's a bad thing, huh? I think if I didn't have that trade on in my mind, because you can understand, Gary, after you said that, because I was like, okay, this is a good trade in my mind. I have like different tiers of trades, and this was one that the one I saw, I was like, okay, I have news that pushed the market down that is actually complete nonsense and is going to have that shouldn't affect the market and is going to have to come back, and we have a good level to go along with it. This is like all in. And so I was like, well, I can't really do a whole lot to trade this with my account. If I was willing to trade later and trade it with my live account, and then I probably would have just taken it up to the 3150 and then be done. If not, have gotten stopped out when they moved a little bit lower. But for the trade that I was thinking about, this could certainly follow through into the weekend. So I went out, I posted it on Twitter. I was posting about it in the Discord. I went and made a post in a Facebook group with the levels. Like, I'm pretty committed on this. I think the market is going to close the week above 3112. So, because I was like, well, we didn't really like make a formal bet, so I don't think that I can like hold his feet to the fire on that. But like, I'm holding to it. I am 100% committed on this thing. And you told me yesterday when I said all of that I was being an idiot, but at the moment, it looks pretty fucking awesome. Not only does it look pretty fucking awesome, but the level at which we picked is like prescient, right? Like anybody looking, especially new traders that don't understand that, hey, one time is maybe you just got lucky, but come on, you couldn't have picked a better level. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. And like I said, I don't want to fight the market when you got positive Remdesivir news out. Though I kind of wonder, like, wasn't Remdesivir already like
Gary Rich says I said you were an idiot on the Supreme Court ruling not trading. Learn to focus and pay attention.
But I was right. So let's go back to that, because I don't think we really explained, because when we ended the stream we were still a little bit confused, but I have been able to read through the cases and everything else like that, and I understand, and my trade was correct. So when we first heard the news, the way that it was presented was like Donald Trump is going to have to give up his financial records. When I read that headline, that's what I thought was happening, and I believe that's what the market thought was happening, and they absolutely reacted to it. No question about it in my mind that they were reacting to that. Well, what we found out is that there was actually 2 cases. Okay. The first case was about, well, the one that I don't know which one was first or second. One of the cases was the House of Representatives were subpoenaing Donald Trump's financial records. And what the Supreme Court found in that case was that the lower courts did not properly consider if Congress had a reasonable legislative reason to subpoena that information. Essentially, they were saying that it shouldn't be granted. Like, they're passing it down to the lower courts, but the way that their reading reads is kind of like insinuating that the lower courts got it wrong and that they should be denying this request because Congress doesn't have a legitimate legislative reason to request his records. And they were specifically mentioned things about how, the legislative branch doesn't have supremacy over the executive branch and that they have their own political reasons for doing it. Was exactly what Donald Trump would want that ruling to be. Okay. The second one was where the New York Attorney General was requesting their documents. And in that one, the Trump administration argued that they're immune from prosecution. So this is the one that you guys were arguing with me on. The Supreme Court found that the Trump administration is not immune from prosecution. They thoroughly rejected their argument. But they also came in and they said, well, you can't reject it based on that you are the president. But you can come in and you can say, hey, they don't really have probable cause or whatever. And they actually, in the thing, list out a couple of the other arguments that the administration can make. And then they kicked it down to a lower court. So it's going to go down to that lower court. And the Trump administration is going to have to make those arguments again. And I don't know. I think that those arguments seem pretty good to me. And so they may still win that case in the end. So the whole thing was like, oh, you know what? This isn't going to affect the election. It doesn't hurt Donald Trump's election efforts. This is good news for Donald Trump. He might not realize it. His attorney actually did. His attorney said something completely different than what Donald Trump was saying when he was tweeting. This is good news for Donald Trump. So I said, hey, we are at the expected move for the day. And one of the key drivers for us to move down this far ends up to be a complete misread by the markets. I want to buy it here. And it's been a great trade so far. And like I said, it's going to be completely random as far as I know as to whether more news comes out that pushes us down below that or not. But at the moment, it looks super great.
I2 Yanth Great says so the president has to give a reason. It will come back with a reason and then get struck down maybe.
When you mean struck down, you mean yeah, that could be what happens. Was that a live trade? No, it was not a live trade because, like we said, I'm not going to trade outside of my specified time period. And I don't have a large enough account to really take a swing trade like that where you hold something into the weekend. That's why when you were saying, well, we'll make a bet on it, and I think you left before that, but I said in the chat, I was like, sure, $50. So I'm telling you right now, if we close below 31.12, I will give Gary $50. And I'm not going to hold him to that the other way because he didn't agree to it. I want to bet 10K. Yeah, I wish I had 10K, Gary. I won't hold you to it the other way, but if we close below 31.12, I'll give you $50. This is what, like, I get trades like these every once in a while. I feel really confident about it. And well, we gotta I should backtrack a little bit. When I took the trade Felt really confident about it, especially throughout the day. When I wake up this morning, I realized that, hey, what I had there, that was a good swing trade for us to get back up to 3150. But beyond that now, my probabilities are random. So probably I'm trying to extend it further than I want. But I said what I said at the time, and it's working out okay for me. So I just have to stick with it, and what happens, right? And since we got Remdesivir news on that gives me. I don't want to short the market on a day when there's Remdesivir news. I don't know how else to put it. This must have been the news that the administration was talking about earlier in the week when they were saying we have some news on therapeutic treatments that would be market moving. The information that's coming out from this latest trial is extremely positive in terms of how effective the therapeutic treatment is.
I2 Great says I heard that Remdesivir is totally ineffective as a vaccine.
Yeah, well, so how did you say his name? L2. Oh, Ryan. Yeah.
I2 Great says and that we'd have to wait for another. Forgot where I hear that.
Yeah, so the last time that we were talking about Remdesivir, man, I totally forgot about this. But the last time that we were talking about Remdesivir, it came out and the results were positive. And then a bunch of other people came out and were saying, oh, hey, like we actually read the thing. And the way that they're presenting the results are not as positive as they're saying. So there was kind of like this big move off of it. And then when it turned out that the results were not as good as they thought, the market didn't really come back. It was that's where I was saying it's kind of funny that if it's positive therapeutic news, even if it's total BS, the market moves up. But now what is happening is we're getting a bigger trial from Remdesivir, and the metrics that we get from this one are pretty conclusive that it helps. They're saying that you're 60% more likely to recover, that you'll recover 4 days faster, I think it was that they said. Like everything is just positive and really quells most of the concerns that people had after that last study. So you're right. You were hearing that Remdesivir is totally ineffective. It's not a vaccine; it's a therapeutic treatment. But it wasn't that it was totally ineffective, but there was some real question about the data, and now it's turning out that no, actually, it is. It looks like it's going well for them.
Gary Rich says go long S at 3,167, go short 3,119 just after the open.
You say like that's a pretty wide range, dude. Go short 3119. Well, I think you could be right. If the market were to go back down to 31.
Gary Rich says watch it happen.
That would be awfully bearish for me. But I think that the chances of either of those being busted.
I2 Great says here's a really fun bet to make. Who will come out with a vaccine first? USA or China? Open mouth smile.
Well, where is China on a vaccine? I haven't heard anything about what they've been doing.
I2 Great says I heard some rumblings that they were going really fast with a vaccine, but who knows? It's China.
Yeah, you kind of have to be skeptical. Something that's really interesting about China.
I2 Great says they'll probably end up releasing a fake vaccine just to beat the US.
Here's the open. something that's been interesting about China lately is that, we've got this coming financial war possibly coming. And, so you would expect to start seeing like the propaganda spinning up and everything like that. But what China has said about it has been incredibly analytical. Okay, so there was some pumping there on that. That was a little interesting. What was that? 31.45.50? When they were going bid there, huh? Curious. Well, let's see if something happens. They touch it again. Okay. Yeah. There is somebody fighting it there. Okay, let they continue forward.
Gary Rich says YM long 25,803 short 25,355.
Hmm. And how is the 10-year doing? Well, I remember at the
I2
beginning of
Yanth
this
Great says
saying it was
China
too
sees this
high.
virus as an opportunity to show the world that they are a responsible state actor and not the bad guys. They might have leaked the virus, but they are trying hard to beat it.
It looks to me like I don't know, my gut instinct, especially about the treasury at the beginning of the session, that it was too high. It does seem to be playing out, but so should I have taken that as a trade? I'm not so sure. I could have taken it. I certainly could have taken a trade when the Remdesivir stuff came out. I think I would have if I wasn't already. I feel like that I'm so invested in this other thing that I probably couldn't take scalps effectively right now. So I think I'm just going to sit on my hands today. But I certainly could have shorted the bonds at Remdesivir, and that would have been a good trade, or just gone long the E-mini. Either one would have been fine. That look over in the treasuries though looks particularly. Look at how far they moved. Pretty fast. There was some buying into 19, but they puked. Decriminalize Seattle lines up majority council support for 50% cut in police budget. It's really crazy to me that people are still trying to push that after we are already seeing like rising crime rates all over the place. What the heck? All the reckoning will be in New York and California real estate. Our last 3 buyers were from there. I missed Iger's comment earlier, but I think that's probably true, because I was already seeing stories about how there was like a rising vacancy rate in New York and things like that. Because not only is it like uh just the overall
I2 Yanth Great says
how
the
do you put it?
Chinese military is in ruins ATM. They really do not want hot war or even cold war, at a time when they were so close to
Really?
convincing the rest of the world that they are good boys like any OTHR stat.
Anyways, it sounds like that not only do you got this coronavirus thing going on, but now because of the protests and everything else like that, people are fleeing suburban areas. So, yeah, you're probably right. If you see it anywhere, it's going to be in New York and in California first. But like I said before, probably the biggest determining factor of that is going to be whether or not Congress extends the unemployment benefits. Because if they don't extend them, maybe they make it so that you can't make more. But if they don't extend them, then people are going to be upset. Okay, so not necessarily hearing anything, but that was pretty good downturn there. Well, 3133 was the last area of support. That doesn't really mean anything other than that it was the last area of support, but let's see what happens. At least looks like at least some people are trying to take that as a bounce. Yeah, so we had a good buy at the beginning, but look at it in cumulative delta. It didn't really follow through. I don't think that that's anything conclusive at the moment, but probably something we should keep an eye on, right? Okay, so now they're doing it again. This time at 38.50. Do you see that? Okay. So Nate Silver tweeting about coronavirus cases, the new cohort of rising cases in 60% of the country is critical. People may have been able to buy into the recovery narrative by November if there had been 2 seasons of improvement by then, but now we're also going to have a lost summer and school is dicey for fall. That's an interesting. So that's very different from the the base case that I've been seeing. Let's see. There was more on this thread. Let's see what he was saying. Another question is whether the judgment is going to be retroactive and is just baked in now. No new development will bring back 130 lives or give us back months of isolation and anxiety cut off from friends, family, and normal activity. Then Nate was responding, yeah, you can certainly conjure up scenarios where the COVID situation is looking better by mid fall, but it is hard to imagine scenarios where things feel roughly normal again by then. Still likely to be reminders everywhere of the very difficult 8 months for the country. Oh, because they're talking about it for the election. Will coronavirus sink Donald Trump for the election? I mean, if Trump tomorrow suddenly woke up with Obama, Romney, insert politician here, temperament, said, we screw up and I'll make this right, actually followed through and did it, maybe the public might give him some credit, but sorry, that ain't going to happen. I'm not so sure that analysis is correct. Because again, the base case that I'm looking at right now is that next week we should start to see lower cases. And certainly when kids go to school in the fall, we'll probably see a spike in cases from that. But in the end, it's going to be, hey, we never reached hospital capacity, and that I would call that a win. Well, we reached hospital capacity in some areas, but it never turned into a real disaster. I can say that, right? I don't know. We're seeing the hospital capacity reached in Houston, but we haven't seen masses of people huddled, like some of the stuff that they were saying about Wuhan or that we thought was going to happen in New York. That never happened. There's kind of this other thing with the politics of
Sunday
it,
Driver says silver is going to make me rich.
the politics of it is that um they what people want to be able to say that the administration was successful is kind of was never going to happen, right? Like the virus is going to come. There's going to be a certain impact. There's a certain number of people that are going to catch it and die, and there's literally nothing the government can do about it. See, they're setting an expectation that you can never meet. I also don't feel like I've had a lost summer. We had a good 4th of July. I don't know. Okay, well, by the way, we had that pretty negative downturn. They've recovered it, and the cumulative delta has come back even. So things overall still look fairly balanced. I don't see a huge imbalance in the market at the moment, but I haven't heard anything from these guys in a while. Igar took a quick scalp long. That's a pretty good catch.
Sunday Driver says here about the Three Gorges Dam in China. Huge freaking dam that is about to break. If it collapses, hundreds of millions could die.
Oh, I did hear about that. I heard about it, but I didn't go into it. But I did hear that it was dangerous. Let's see here. Taiwan news. They open all of the floodgates on it. Everything that I'm seeing is from the Taiwan news. Let's read. Oh.
Sunday Driver says China builds everything like a death trap. It's only a matter of time. CCP scales up without proper controls and eventually tumbles. Everything is like that. Giant apartment buildings fall down.
I would be careful about this one Sunday. It might not be what we think. Hold on a second. Yeah. So here's why I'm saying what I am. When we think of a dam, we think of like Hoover Dam, where we create this huge lake and so on and so forth, right? Well, the kind of dams that they've been building in China are a little bit different. They set it up so that they can get the most power out of it, but but also so that it affects the flow through the river as little as possible. So right now they've opened all of the floodgates because there's a lot of water on there, and there's some question about whether it can hold up. But if it breaks out, it's not like like if Hoover Dam failed, right? Everybody downstream would be a absolute epic, legendary disaster. But the Three Gorges Dam, I'm not as sure about. I'm not seeing anything about like what would be the effect to the people downstream if it failed. In fact, the only thing that I've seen is that is some companies refusing to invest in stuff. Of course, the Global Times saying that it's not at risk of collapse. Of course. But you're going to get a lot of flooding over there, that's for sure. Here's something from Australia. Let's read that one.
Sunday Driver says Shanghai and Wuhan would likely get pancaked in a wall of death, mayhem, and destruction.
How do you know that? How do you know that? Yeah, it is one of these. Okay, so we had another move higher and pullback. I see
Sunday Driver says they are downstream and have been built up massively since the dam's creation.
That's not. I don't think that definitively answers the question. See, the thing that I'm not seeing that I would expect to see is experts say if Three Gorges Dam were to fail, that over 6 billion people downstream would die, or not 6 billion, that would be ridiculous, but this many million people would die in the catastrophic flood that would fall. I don't see that. And like I was saying, here's a picture of the dam. It's one of these newer dams where they're trying to disrupt the flow as little as possible. So you don't necessarily get a huge lake behind it. I mean, you get a little bit, but just look at how high that is, right? It's not the same kind of dam as what we think of as a dam in the United States that they built back in, the World War II era.
Sunday Driver says this is a good article.
It's not the same kind of a dam that we're familiar with from the New Deal. RJ Wheels says
there's a lot of tribalism in China. Wouldn't take much for factions to rise up.
I find it interesting that one of the things in China is that it really seems like that the China is not as unified as many people seem to think. Yeah. And that's why they're all so concerned about Hong Kong, is because if Hong Kong broke off, then the rest of China would break off and they would say, oh, let's just be separate countries again. And the Chinese are concerned about that because they feel like that whenever those nations are split up, that they're not very strong. So they're in the largest flood. They've evacuated 40,000 people because of the Flooding, sure. Can't provide flood protection. See some why they're saying that they think that it's not very effective. Okay, there you go. That's the quote that we want. If the dam collapses, it will impact over 400 million people living downstream. But see, he didn't say. I would have thought that he would say it. 400 million people could drown. They didn't say that. Oh, they're turning down again. This morning, we're having a pretty good back and forth off of the open. Do I? Hold on a second. I just want to double check something.
Sunday Driver says no talk on Oklahoma being given back to the Indians. Lol.
Oh. Well, I don't know if that's really pertinent to us.
Says, well, China probably is stronger together, but they are being held together by a thread. Big military, but it is super underfunded and crumbling despite newer tech. Their attempts to expand is a show.
You think so? Well, I'd really be if you could. I'd be interested if you could provide more sources that would back that claim up. It sounds like a reasonable thing that could possibly be happening, but you're probably right that China is probably not as strong at the moment as they're making themselves out to be. That's why with this whole possible financial war that they're being so analytical about it, because they're really what they're trying to do is dissuade them from doing anything because they really are worried about it.
I2 Yanth Great says I followed a couple YouTube military news shows that cover it regularly.
Well, militarily, I totally buy that, right? Like I was seeing this thing, I think it was from News Squawk this morning, where somebody from China was saying that if they decided to attack Taiwan, that they had enough missiles that it would be over within a few hours. And I read that and I was like, yeah, you're full of shit. There's no way you're going to attack Taiwan. It'd be the end. It would be the end. Yeah, maybe you could completely flatten Taiwan like a pancake.
Sunday Driver says I'm thinking about starting a YouTube channel.
Then do it. It's a lot of work. Like, let me back up. Streaming is actually, if you have a good setup,
I2 Yanth Great says it would be over because the RJ Wheels says Mount Rushmore rename talk with Sitting Bull bring carved out. I2 Yanth Great says US would invade China lol.
Yeah. It would. There's maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that the world would stand for China invading Taiwan. I think that would be apocalyptic, you know? They talking all big and strong, but I think that there's zero chance of that happening. It would be such a bad decision. It would be like the world's Pearl Harbor, you know what I mean?
Sunday Driver says who would stop them?
It would be like the world's Pearl Harbor. Yeah, they would do it. They could destroy Taiwan, but the rest of the world would decimate them.
I2 Yanth Great says we would instantly have all allies, airspace dominance, naval dominance.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is I don't think that the United States gives an explicit guarantee to Taiwan or anything like that.
I2 Yanth Great says people really underestimate how strong the US is.
The US has a lot of technology that we're not aware of, I can tell you that much. when you look at the kind of stuff that they were developing back in the 70s. Okay, like we've seen some of it because only now are we kind of starting to realize some of the stealth technology that they have.
Sunday Driver says, I don't think the US is that strong against other great powers. Our carriers are sitting ducks. High-speed missiles would sink them all.
Well, now that was an interesting one because China was also pushing that, oh, we have all of these missiles that we would shoot at your aircraft carriers and would totally sink them. It's probably a legitimate concern or threat, but doesn't mean that they would win.
RJ Wheels says no one can match USA aircraft carrier capacity.
Oh yeah, it's not even close on that. But he has a point. Sunday has a point that if you can shoot missiles and sink aircraft carriers, that kind of changes the way that wars are fought, right? In World War II, it was like we send a fleet over there and they do their thing. And if they can just sink them all from, the mainland with a missile, then it's a completely different game, right? But that just means that the United States would have to go in.
I2 Yanth Great says we have secret anti-tomahawk tech though tongue out.
Well, that's true. Well, it's not even secret. They have a lot of anti-missile technology, especially from all of the development that they've been doing with the Israelis. We see these videos of the little bird thing that shoots down missiles all the time, and I'm sure that they even have directed energy weapons that do those sorts of things. Yeah, I don't know. I tell you what, when you start to think about that technology that they potentially have, like this whole thing with UFOs, I'm convinced that the thing with UFOs is that China and/or Russia have what would we call it? Ultrasonic flyers. Sorry, ultrasonic drones that are so fast that a pilot could not survive the turns, and that's why they're just drones.
Sunday Driver says they don't need aircraft carriers. The missile technology is off the hook. They can literally fire hundreds of missiles at carriers, and they would never shoot them all down. Too many, too fast.
I don't know about that.
I2 Yanth Great says we have so many advantages simply because of the F-35. It turns out that 500 mil was worth it. It sees aircraft 2 miles away and launches a missile lol.
Really? You think so? So this is another thing, because I've been following the F-35 a bit, and it sounds like an impressive thing, but there's a lot of question as to whether or not it was worth it. I guess we'll see. I mean, the thing is that the F-16 F-15, 16, 18 was so dominant. Like I think they're saying that the F-15 is downed like 200 planes and one of them was downed. Like the dominance that it's had is absolutely insane. And I doubt that China has anything even close to comparable. That's where it gets down. Is like it's their aircraft carriers is one thing. Then when you start getting into missile technology, space technology, stealth technology, I don't think that the Chinese is nearly as far as the United States, but that's making a judgment or assertion that I'm really not qualified to make.
I2 Yanth Great says I
We
heard
really
the
don't know.
F-35 versus F-15 beats them like 10-1. It's really insane how much more tech is stuffed into the new aircraft.
Right. But here's the thing: is I'm not in the military and I don't know anything about the secret tech that they have. A10s are great.
Stephen Wright says A10 cold sweat smile.
It's just YouTube and TikTok and stuff have been showing me a lot of stuff about military planes, and I would just really like to go to
I2
an
Yanth
air
Great
show.
says we also have all the spy satellites. Kenny Desmet says China is a sleeping giant. Let him sleep, for when he wakes, he will shake the world.
Nah, I think that in Asian culture, losing face is a really big thing, and so you will come in and you're gonna talk really
I2
hot.
Yanth Great says still sleeping though.
going to talk really hot about your military capacity and how you could totally flatten Taiwan if you wanted to, but I don't think that they have any intention of ever actually doing it. Okay, so are we seeing something here? UN, no, I don't see anything to justify that. That does look like that could have been news though.
I2nth Great says they will make a lot of strides in submarine tech, but it's going to take China like 20 years, maybe 10. Kenny Desmet says Napoleon Bonaparte quote.
Okay, so Kudlow is on TV right now. That's what's happening. He's saying that the U.S. is in a recovery. I don't know why they're moving down though.
Gary Rich says the 3 dams in China will break one day. This problem isn't the first time that dam has had issues.
Yeah. I think you're right about that. Well, I remember reading this. Okay. So Kudlow is on television and saying stuff, and like, for instance, that, yeah, so First Squawk is tweeting here now. Kudlow says Trump will not tolerate full U.S. economic shutdown amid coronavirus. But I'm not sure why that would move markets down. Whatever. Maybe we do see a down day. Maybe I'm gonna be bad. Maybe like I said, I think at this point, whether or not we close, my big bet is probably pretty random. It was probably, I think that I had a good swing trade, but for something to hold into the weekend, probably not. So first time I've ever done something like that. But yeah. Oh, I'm gonna still stick to it, but I don't know. That move was not encouraging. It was not the end of the world, but it was not encouraging. Man, and politics are really zeroing in on Mayor de Blasio saying we're banning all large gatherings except for maybe Black Lives Matters protests. Which I think is weird because, well, who wants to go to any kind of a large gathering right now? Well, I guess a rally. Because there's the political rallies, right?
I2nth Great says we still hovering within the range, volume point of control.
I don't know. It seems like there's something else going on. That can't have been based off of what Kudlow was saying, was
Gary
it?
Rich says.
There's a New York Times story about it. The Three Gorges Dam.
Gary Rich says the cities below the air in trouble. That article is 2011.
Let's see here. Huge dam is meeting the government's goal of producing pollution-free electric power. The government said generating 84 billion kilowatt hours of electricity, but critics say the sheer weight of water backed by the 410-mile-long reservoir behind the dam has increased the danger of earthquakes and landslides. And that's I don't care about that. Certainly sounds like it's a problem. I'm just not so sure that if it broke that it would be like some apocalyptic disaster. It would be like B-roll. Could be wrong. I don't know. Kudlow says he believes the U.S. is in a recovery.
Gary Rich says yes, they fixed it by putting bubble gum in the holes.
Ah. So I just heard some New York numbers, and I'm not going to read them all out to you or anything, but it sounded like it was kind of in line. Well, Daily FX Team Live. New York virus cases increased 0.2%, matching prior 7-day average. So no big deal.
Gary Rich says Google Earth where that dam sits. If it breaks, bad for downstream, very bad.
Well, but did you get what I was saying about that? It's not like a 100-foot wall of water that's going to come down on them, right? It's a little bit different of a dam. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be a disaster, but that's all I'm trying to say. So it's hard for me. I would have to rely on an expert to say what would actually be the impact of that. I mean, like let's take it this way. Let's back it up. I think that the way that we would want to interpret an event like that would be like Chernobyl, right? It would be a similar thing to Chernobyl. There's a country, you had a man-made ecological disaster of some sort. What is the effect on China? Would that be something that would, that could cause the collapse of the Chinese government in the long run? Maybe.
Gary Rich says there are bad floods right now due to they having to release water from the pressure of that dam.
Well, there's bad floods because there's a lot of rain. Apparently, it's bad flooding everywhere. Anyways, so I mean, it could be a bad thing, but all I'm saying is, are we going to see videos on television of a 200-foot wall of water rolling down the canyon at the cities below? Apparently, it's not quite like that. That's what would happen if Hoover Dam fell apart, though. Ooh, that would be crazy. Can you imagine all of Lake
Gary
Powell?
Rich says you are right. I'm sorry for being the stupid idiot.
Yeah. That's okay, Gary. I forgive you. I don't know. This is just the question is, what is the impact, right? I don't want to get all uppity about something that may or may not happen, and then I don't even know what the impact of it is. Like if it came over the news wire that Three Gorges Dam is just broken, how much should that affect the S&P 500? That's the question, right? And I think maybe it would be a good sell day, but I don't think that it would be like epic crash or anything. What do you think? If it was to happen, so how many S&P 500 points, over the long term? So let's say as we figured out in this, the recovery effort and okay, so somebody was just pointing out that the number of cases that we got in New York was less than yesterday. Anyways, how many S&P 500 points are worth? Is it worth over a month? Let's say, because I'm thinking, what am I thinking? I'm thinking maybe 200 points. Oh, that's a good point. On this thing that in New York they're banning all large gatherings except for maybe Black Lives Matters protests. That's not constitutional, and the courts have already in New York have already struck orders like that down.
Gary Rich says how many points were the tsunami, Fukushima?
Ooh, that's good. You're excellent call there, Gary. Let's see. Let's close this. I don't think it was. I mean, I was watching the markets at the time. I don't remember it being a huge deal, though. So, okay. March 11th, 2011.
Gary Rich says 2011 is Fukushima.
Hmm. 2011, that's a way back, man. It's hard for me to remember that far back. Okay. March 11th. Okay, so curious. So that's not particularly, that one is not particularly helpful. Well, actually maybe it is, because on the 11th there was a breakout. So we can't really say, we shouldn't really say points, right? We should say 3017 to, well, let's say let's give them the whole thing. Okay. So let's say 1320 to 1220. What percentage is that exactly? Okay, an 8% decline. So about 250 points.
Gary Rich says 100 handles is a lot, and what did the VIX do then as well?
The VIX was increasing there, and the treasuries were increasing, but the VIX got up. The VIX wasn't crazy. It was like, I hate when it puts this little. I don't know how you get rid of that. It's so annoying. So the VIX reached 30, which is about where it is right now. So it was a pretty good downturn, but it wasn't like a total disaster. And the markets recovered it quickly thereafter. But it's a little difficult. The tsunami must have happened the day before. On Friday at the 11th of March. So probably that whole thing couldn't necessarily be considered the tsunami and stuff, because there was a big fall in the markets the day before anyways. Well, that's really interesting. What's another one? I can think of other disasters. Hurricanes. There's certainly been some hurricanes that caused the markets to come down a little bit. I think in the summer of 2015 there was one. Yeah. That might have been something else, though. Something going on. Wish I could remember what it was now. This is where when I come out and I look at the S&P 500 over the since the crisis, something that we've talked about before, but the whole like we haven't had a recession and like maybe we won't have a recession. Well, we need to. Can we even see it? No, we can't. I guess we need to go to a week.
Gary Rich says Iraq-Afghanistan invasion.
Well, that would be very different, wouldn't it? There we go. So to me, this was a recession. This was a recession. This was a recession. And then we actually had a real recession. But even this is not like really a recession. It's not a recession like this. That's a recession, man. You come down and it takes 2-3 years to recover. Ever since this, it's been different. Because low interest rates and monetary easing. The Iraq invasion, that would be... I don't know if that would be a valid comparison, just it's so far back and the economy is so different now, in terms of like trying to determine that. I think 250 points is fair. So now the question is the dam breaking have as significant of an economic impact as Fukushima would have, or had, rather? Well, I don't know. I'm going to think in the long run, probably it's less. Because the initial disaster that you're going to have, is probably going to be equal to, if not greater than, because you could have all these people downstream, whereas in Fukushima, you just had to evacuate that area in a radius around it. So I think that the number of people potentially impacted at first is probably larger with a dam, right? But with nuclear, now we have like this ongoing cleanup effort that's going on over there, and like they're filtering this water out and getting nuclear water out of it that they have to store everywhere on site and stuff like that. So the longer term Fukushima is probably worse. I don't know if that means which one is worse overall. Apple working with Foxconn on lenses for augmented reality devices. Germany has summoned Chinese ambassador to foreign ministry in connection with the new Hong Kong security law. Is that really anything impactful? I don't know. I tell you what, today has been an incredibly... what should we use? It's just back and forth. Incredibly inconclusive. That's the word I'm looking for. It's been incredibly inconclusive so far. Fox News legal analyst Supreme Court decision on tax returns is a defeat for Trump. Let's see why he says it's a defeat for Trump. Oh, this is Napolitano. Who cares what he thinks? In Napolitano's rules, they ruled that Trump is not immune from criminal prosecution and is not immune from complying with the ordinary process of criminal prosecution. Ultimately, this might not affect the election, but it will certainly affect the president's peace of mind. Nah, who cares? I don't particularly concerned about the president's peace of mind. We all know that he's impulsive. I give it a week, he'll be concerned. He'll be on something completely different. Well, that's a disturbing story. I'm not going to read that one to you. Not relevant, but What I just read was disturbing to me. Nothing that has any impact on markets. Just a local news story. Now, by the way, we did have a little one of those odd spikes at 31.41 a couple minutes back that I missed. Actually, you can see it right here. They came up into that big liquidity, and then when they pushed up through it again, it showed up again. I was just thinking about all of the news that we've had this week, and I'm asking myself, okay, so like, if Donald Trump had been asked to give up his financial documents in the Supreme Court decision, like it was like you have to give it to them now, sort of a decision, which is what I thought it was at the beginning. How much of an impact does that compare to everything else that we've been seeing? I think that would be more impactful than any of the other news that we've had since. Maybe I'm forgetting about something, though. Austrian 100-year bonds are back over 200, up at 25% year to date. Hey. Well, you know what the United States should do? We should have a 100-year bond. Am I wrong? That was something that John Bots and I would always talk about. So that the United States should have a 50-year bond just because we want something else on the curve to trade. Can you imagine how much fun a future for a 50-year bond might be? Like, woo, that would be whippy, right? Or a 100-year bond. Yeah. Would be fun. Hey, if you want, hey, government, I know you're probably looking for new ways to monetize your treasuries because you're, buying so much. Why not offer a 50 or 100-year bond? Eh? Would be fun. Could be fun. So we've been here for a while. How much have we traded overall? Okay. So up at 31.45, we traded 10,000, and we're trading about 10,000 here at 31.40. Overall, though, not an insane amount. And we're coming up on the next hour, and we are in the counter trend period as well. So I would think that my base scenario
I2
here
Yanth
would
Great
be,
says, what if there's no need for the military once we have Super I, XP?
I don't know. Here's another thing is like, let's just say that we're going to have a straight up war with China, right?
I2 Yanth Great says, peace in our time.
The world is very different from the way that it was in 1945, right? There is so much cross dependency with supply chains and things like that. Many people believe that a war like World War II is simply not economically feasible for anybody anymore. Well, we're decoupling from China because of that, but even after that, like the global impact of a war like that is kind of a little crazy to think about. Like, I don't think anything that we would say about what that might be like is likely to be wrong. Like, I just don't think that we have any clue how to even where to even start analyzing something like that, you know? It would be crazy stuff. It'd be very different from things that we know. But just off of that, from just looking at that, that gets us into the thing, which is that's why the majority of war now in the modern era is really economic and diplomatic in nature. I'll give you another good example here. Israel and Iran are at war right now. Like straight up. They haven't said it, and we don't really know for sure.
I2 Great says I still think something could happen where the US gets some weird espionage advantage in China and then we cause an uprising and China implodes. I know it's a long shot, but with I2 Great says would take a long time as well.
Totally. I think it's totally a possibility. Yeah, I think you're on the right track. So like I was saying, Israel and Iran, they're at war right now, and of course we don't know for sure, but I really
RJ Wheel says Trump should hold a Black Lives Matter rally. MSNBC.
He should.
RJ Wheel says will owe its mind.
But I really, you've been hearing about these explosions in Iran? I really think that it's Mossad. That I honestly believe that all of these explosions that they've been having in Iran are from Mossad. It's the most likely explanation for it. Not sure why Iran is being kind of quiet about it, but maybe it's because they don't want the people to realize how big of an advantage Israel actually has over them. Man, if Donald Trump had a Black Lives Matters,
I2 Great says Occam's razor heart.
I don't know. I've been a little surprised that Donald Trump hasn't tried to jump on the. I gotta tell you, he's just going on this instinct of like the antagonistic approach. When I think that what he could have done and would have been way more effective is he could have said, "Oh yeah, no, Black Lives Matter, like totally, but like look at how bad the Democrats have been for you guys, and like I gave you criminal justice reform, right? Like he could have really taken advantage of it. I think it was a real missed opportunity. I remember saying that earlier. But now we have a little bit better idea of how that turned out politically, and now I think we can really definitively say that Donald Trump could have handled that better, right? Get rid of this. Nobody cares. This previous high. Space. Oh, that's interesting. It won't let me put something else there. I can say, oh. I guess it will stay there because it was the. I guess to really get rid of it, I need to come in here and do this. Clear. Load. There you go. So 3146.50 was where the extended session opening range was, and that's why you're getting robots toying with it. Short sterling, the first ever 100 print in the futures. This means the market is pricing for a 0% level in the 3-month Great British Pound Libor by March 2022. Fed's balance sheet posts biggest weekly drop in over 11 years. That would make sense. Market's been pretty quiet lately.
I2 Great says everyone laughs at Trump's Space Force, but I am pretty sure it was an Obama-era idea to basically give us a leg up in the mill space race versus China. People just don't understand orbital mechanics.
Totally was, dude. No, you're totally right. It was the Space Force was a section of the Air Force, and they've been doing stuff where they've got like this drone up there flying on its own for like 2 years, doing all sorts of experiments that we know nothing about. And all Donald Trump did was say that it should be its own division, and that the government's invest. So here's what's really happening. Um, I don't know. Maybe I should do some more research about this today, but this was the impression that I was given, is that before space. Oh, hold on. Okay, so I'm hearing that we're about to get the Florida cases. So, well, I will pause for a second. I was just gonna say that, it used to be that we were putting this into the space program for civilian reasons, and now it's all military development, and so that's why they moved all of the, they gave it so that companies could do that space exploration stuff, like going to Mars, so that the government could focus on, the coming space war with China. The coming space war. We've got a trade war and a financial war and maybe a space war. All the wars with China. Well, the moment market's coming up pretty good. They're teasing the new high. Florida cases, though, could be something that. What was the one about the Space Force that I thought was funny was when they came out with the logo and it looked like Starfleet, and everybody was making fun of them for it. And even though there's actually a history to why they use that symbol and everything, and I actually thought it was super cool. I'm like, that makes I really like him for that, for the making the Space Force. I don't get what you know. Dutch Prime Minister Rutte will seek guarantees on budget reforms at EU talks on recovery fund next week. Ooh, so there could be a bit of volatility in the euro area next week, huh? Hmm.
I2 Great says I'm a space nerd too, so the fact that he and Pence are supporting the Mars missions is a big relief to me.
Yeah. Well, I really like seeing competing companies go for it. Okay. So the squawks are telling me a bunch of them just came through here. U.S. plans a South China Sea announcement next week. Well, that wouldn't. Well, we don't know what it's going to be, but I can't imagine it being a good thing. What do you think they would say?
Sunday Driver says Friday the 13th, 2029, a giant asteroid might crash into the Earth. We are doomed.
Okay. Where'd you get that one from, man? Hmm. I'm still thinking about what could they do in the South China Sea. Okay, so there's that must have been Florida cases because we just got a good little jump there.
Sunday Driver says asteroid is named Apophis.
So
Kenny Desmond says okay, so the UK economics is really bad right now because of leaving the EU and because of Corona, of course. Just imagine that the Queen dies.
Oh, Kenny, don't say such things. No. I don't know if that was the Florida cases. That might have been nothing. In fact, it could be a trap.
I2 Yanth Great says lol, the last Friday the 13th was at the bottom of the crash in March.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
I2 Yanth Great says so that's good?
Sunday Driver says I think the Queen has been a rather bad queen. She's let the country go to hell. She did a rather bad job of defending the faith and the English people.
Huh. Interesting take. Because here in America, we wouldn't think of those as like that. That didn't even occur to me that that was one of the Queen's primary duties, but it really is, isn't it? To defend the faith. What the heck is Zero Hedge saying to GovTrader here? Oh, that is GovTrader, not Zero Hedge.
Kenny Desmond says haha, I know it's bad haha, but just imagine that happens tongue out the UK would be a goner.
I don't know.
I2 Yanth Great says that sounds like a load of rubbish. She's just an elite they want to preserve to keep the rabble down.
Yeah, I mean, the actual economic impact of it, is it really bad? It shouldn't have an
Sunday Driver says
impact,
London has gone from a Christian stronghold to Londonstone in less than 2 decades.
But it certainly would impact the mood of that country for sure, yeah. I mean, Charles isn't that bad, is he? That would really be the concern is okay, who do we get after that? Is Charles not been very good? Do you think who would you rather be royalty over there? Queen Elizabeth or Prince Charles? King Charles, I guess it would become. Hey, maybe if we had a king in England, maybe things would be different. I don't know. That's probably wouldn't be. Probably, I don't think it would change. Nah, I don't know. Meh. Like they had a king during World War II, right?
I2 Yanth Great says aren't they all child cannibals? Open mouth smile. Kenny Desmond says unless the tea will keep them alive. IDK.
I'm really wigging out here about what could the South China Sea announcement next week possibly be. I wouldn't think that it would be that big of a thing. Otherwise, they wouldn't be previewing it. You know what I mean? Like, why would you preview something like that if it was, oh, hey, China, you can't do this shit anymore? That would be bad, right? Hey, we're going to take down all of these islands. That would be a big enough. There's no way that they would do that and say, oh, well, we're going to warn you about it for a week first. No way. So it can't be anything significant. That's like a really wild guess there, though, isn't it? I don't think that we can trade off of that. I think that we just have to ignore it for now.
Sunday Driver says well, look at what has been happening. Australia is distancing themselves from China.
Oh yeah, I mean everybody's distancing themselves from China. It's really quite, I mean, in the end, when we look at the Trump administration, because I know it seems like a lot of crazy things have happened, but I'm telling you, the thing that will in the end matter is that Donald Trump got the entire world to start divesting themselves from China. That's going to be that's going to be the most significant legacy of his presidency. And it's something that I think has to happen. So I guess I'm happy about it. But, Anthony Crudelli, not every market has to be defined by a bull or a bear. We forget the markets can be range bound for periods too. Everything I've been seeing this past month has been telling me we're just rangy, and yes, let the market be what it is and execute according to that environment. I thought we were in a kangaroo market.
Sunday Driver says it could be a joint announcement that US, Japan, the UK Commonwealth will not recognize China's island creations as real. They won't get the benefit of being recognized as Chinese borders.
Could be. Well, that's why I'm saying though, Sunday, is if it had anything to do with China's saying that we're not
Sunday
going to
Driver says
accept
that
their
could well mean
intrusion,
war.
why would they
says,
preview
so
it?
I think the way the geographic strategy works out in the China area, China sees Hong Kong as a defensible target they can take. Taiwan is not, however. Pompeo cedes Hong Kong but never Taiwan.
Yep.
I2
Totally.
Yanth Great says Taiwan wouldn't be defensible for China.
Totally.
Guido Sledden says seems like S is repairing the profile into the weekend.
I have to say, I don't see. Oh, okay, wait. I'm getting latest UK opinion poll shows Conservative Party extending their lead over Labour to 10 points. I remember when it was like back in the election and that seemed like it was maybe close. That's interesting. Okay. Little stop run there. Woo! Woo! Get gone. I guess 31-38 in the end was a good trade, even though it kind of came back on you a little bit. But I still don't know what's causing it. That might have just been stops for all we know. Not hearing the Florida numbers. Oh, that is the Florida numbers.
Sunday Driver says they would preview a major structural shift in coordinated policy. Boxes China into where they have to exert military force to make the West comply with their fake island sovereignty.
Okay, so coronavirus cases rise 4.9% versus 4.7% 7-day average, which is not too bad actually. Because remember in the past we've had days where it was like they were expecting 5% and it was 7%. So here again we are seeing that it appears that Florida is past the peak and that the number of cases is decreasing. Because on Friday, you would expect to see more cases than average, but it only being 0.2% is
I2 Yanth Great says yeah, we have F-35s on carriers, lol, those fake islands don't mean much.
Okay, so what was there? COVID-19 deaths rise by 93 with a previous of 120. So here again is where I'm saying, you notice the market doesn't care about the deaths because it's a lagging indicator. I don't see anything in the numbers like straight up that makes that a buy, but the market definitely bought it. And I don't know if my hey, that it was only 4.9 versus 4.7, if that's really a good explanation, but that's the best one that I can come up with right now. So So the positivity for new cases was 12.75% versus 18.39% yesterday. Okay. Well, I mean, when they came back off of 31.54, I bet you some of this is probably lungs getting stopped out. I might not be like a counter analysis to the coronavirus cases or anything like that. This looks like just technical movement and order flow. So now I'm starting to see some analyses about it that. Oh, now that's interesting. Oh, sorry. Open image in new tab. So here's the coronavirus cases that they're getting. And note that, so here's where you get this, like I was saying. Right. Where's my pen? This is Monday, right? So you see here's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, and 7/3 was Thursday. Or no, this was a Friday, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. So towards the latter half of the week, they're higher. Okay. This week we should see the peak. And what are we getting? Pretty close to equal. So at the moment, our base case that the virus new cases is peaking this week seems to be intact. If we get numbers next week, like let's say that on Monday we come out and it's, let's say, 7,000 new cases or something, that would make me concerned, right? Or if we came out here and it was like, 15,000 on Friday, then I would be concerned. But as it is right now, looks pretty in line. Oh yes, where are we looking for today? Hmm. Okay, so that move is retracing. So I think what's going on here is, again, the market seems to be having a hard time pricing in the coronavirus cases. And there was certainly some like robots and big guys that when they heard the initial numbers, they really liked it. But then when you come in, I think you get these other market participants that they just heard that it was, for instance, one of the things was they said that, well, like we were just showing, that this was the highest case count, the second highest case count in Florida. Yeah, because last week it was 11,401, and this week it's 11,385. And so people hear that and they think, "Oh no, it's scary," but in reality, is it really a big deal? Based off of the framework that I'm using, my analysis, no, this is good. Everything is in line with expectations. Is good.
Bio-trader Wayne says spike in deaths for the virus is what will affect the market more. That would take over the media cycle and force politicians to close everything up again.
Why? Oh, you know what? It's a different. So, I covered this a little bit earlier.
Great says I'm hearing that capital is shifting from S&P and Nasdaq to Russell right now.
I have to look into that. That sounds likely. I haven't seen anything specifically suggesting that yet, though. We could take a look here in a second. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So Wayne, the thing that you got to remember about deaths. Okay, so I think you have part of it right. Deaths. Well, it's not necessarily just deaths, but people in the ICU. That's the sort of a thing that will cause the politicians to have to close things back up again. Now that's happened in Houston. They've actually kind of put more restrictions on, but so far, market doesn't seem to think that that's a huge deal in Texas, right? But you've got to remember that deaths is a trailing indicator, right? We know the general trajectory of new cases, and based off of what we've gotten in new cases, that gives us a fairly decent idea of how many deaths we're going to have in the future. So when we have deaths, because it's a trailing indicator, it's much less impactful on the market. Unless there was like some uptick in deaths that was really significant. It would have to be really significant uptick. Make sense? It would have to, it would have to be a significant enough increase to suggest to us that like the death rate was increasing, or that the virus had mutated or something like that. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it's a trailing indicator. And as we've been saying, it appears that new cases is declining overall, and that it's peaking this week. And so, yeah, next week we will see more deaths. But here is a situation where if new cases continues to look good and it continues to reinforce the view that we're on the downward side of the curve, then when we come in and you see the market move up with new deaths, I would buy the dip. Probably not likely to happen, though.
Sunday Driver says at some point, capital will shift from US stocks to foreign stocks. Sunday Driver says I hear that Houston would already be past 100% if they weren't shipping patients to other cities.
They filled it.
Sunday Driver says I'm not sure I'm tracking with your lagging death not being significant. At this point, perhaps. But if hospitalizations continue to jump, then deaths will have to be a factor.
Sure. Because what could happen is, well, that would be in line with what I was just saying, right? If something happened that made us think that the death rate was increasing, one reason why the death rate the most likely reason for the death rate increasing would be that there's not enough hospital beds. Because we know that when you don't get hospital treatment, that the death rate just skyrockets, right? Like if you get hospital treatment, the survival rate is, in line with everything else. But if you don't get hospital treatment, like what happened to many people in Wuhan, then that's when you start to get a really crazy death rate and a lot of people die.
I2 Great says also people might be kinda getting number fatigue or something silly factor like that. They just don't care about the numbers and move on with their lives.
Well, I think that we're very likely to start to enter into a period much like we were at the beginning or like mid-June, right? Where people think that it's just over with.
Sunday Driver says what we're seeing is the UV light summer effect.
Sorry, I have to cut. Oh, I shouldn't have cut that off before it finished. I am still not going to count Wu Flu out until we get past the cold and flu season this fall and winter. I think that you have a good point there, Sunday Driver. I just moved from Texas and they changed how they count new cases there. For every new case, they would add in the count, the last 10 people that they had contact with without testing. Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah, okay. I don't know if that really changes the overall thing that we're looking at, but like for us in the markets, but that is an interesting thing. But politically that's interesting, right? Paul Smith. Anyone interested in me posting some stuff over the weekend that I focused on this last week or so that I think has helped my trading, maybe help some people observe context a little bit better? Yeah. Well, he'll do it. We'll see what he says. Okay, so a little bit of maybe a turn there. Let's see. It looks like they're really in. Okay, Donald Trump on my way to U.S. Southern Command in the great state of Florida. China says samples of imported shrimp tested positive for coronavirus. What? Okay. That's from Bloomberg Business. Okay, well, we're going to stick around for another 30 minutes, I have to say. Even though I'm still a little nervous about it, my trade that we will stay above 31.12, I'll call it a bet. Because I guess what we're betting here is my ego. But it's looking good. Connor Woodland, what's up, Seth? I'm from the Futures Disc. Oh, hey. How's it going? How have you been? Wait, how did you find the Futures Discord? I've been wondering. We used to have like some links that people had placed, but I think that... Hold on. Doesn't matter. Fauci just saying something. I'm sure you see it over the wire, but it's not important. I'm friends with Richard. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure. I know who that is. Oh, I get what you're saying. I'm not sure I remember or I know who you're talking about, but you're saying that he referred you to the Discord. That's cool. Or are you talking about Gary Rich? or are you talking about Rich? who we haven't seen for a week or two now. I think he got bored of it. Yeah, I think we had like a bunch of links out, and like people had posted it on Reddit and stuff like that. And now there's all these people starting Discord groups and stuff. It's really quite something. And I don't think that we're even close to the largest anymore, which is okay, because being popular is not the goal, right? But oh, okay. Mike Salisbury, thanks for the response on the Discord yesterday. I'm back watching ZNZB, GCES now giving up on stonks. Oh, yeah. Oh, and there's Ace. How are you, Ace? How did you come out? I didn't take any trades here on stream today because I made this call at the end of my stream yesterday that we were going to close the week above 31.12, and I felt like that was coloring my opinion too. Like, I'm bullish. I'm like, oh, I think you buy like Remdesivir. Oh, you buy this 31.25, buy it. That would have been a good one, I guess, but no. But the trade is that we're going to close the week above 31.12. I think I'm going to, it's looking pretty good for me right now, right? So, Mike, you were the one that was asking, like, what the cues were. Yeah? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, so I tell you, from my perspective, well, let me just show you through my workspace, right? Like, I watch the order flow. I still want to consider myself like an interest rate trader. Maybe that's an ego thing because they always say interest rate trading is, more intelligent. But I really like to watch the order flow for that, and I have the E-minis over here. But when you come over here, you see I've got this one in the upper left in particular. That's 6E, 6J, gold, and the dollar index. And then these are just the treasuries. I got some indicators that I've been working on that I'm watching with it on the treasuries here. And then I got E-mini and some internals on the E-mini. So I really try to look at everything. Like, I want to know where is money moving from and to, and what does that tell me about why the market is potentially moving. So that's where it's like, yeah, like I think that ZN and ES are like the best instruments to trade, or maybe ZB if you're the high roller. But really, you want to look at everything. You want to know where the money flows are coming from. The more that you can kind of take it more from a fundamental approach. So the more that you can understand about why people are moving where they are, the better off you are. And that even means that you can, GC is good to trade too. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I really like the action that I've been seeing in gold on a short-term basis. I actually still have it up here, don't I? So when you look at like some of the liquidity and stuff, and there's a lot of really random movement over there. It's a thin instrument. I'd say it's hard to trade. But it's there if you like a thin instrument. If you like a thin instrument, gold and oil are the places to be. But I like a thick instrument, so I stick with the treasuries with the ZN and E-mini. Are you using the Jigsaw Bridge to Ninja trying to refresh myself through John Grady's course again? Yes, I am using the bridge. There's maybe like a 5 millisecond delay between the two of them. So it works really well, essentially. I think that at first there was some concern about how fast it actually was. But what actually happens is it's going through the memory. So like there's a shared location in memory that both applications are accessing. So it's not instant, but it might as well be instant. It's like, 5 CPU cycles difference. I'm just making something out of it, but I'm just saying it's not a very big difference. It of course can't be instant. That's not possible because of the way the processors work, but the delay is as minimal as it could possibly be. So that works out pretty well. What was I going to say? I was going to say something to you though. Oh yeah, like my take lately has been fundamentals. Like and the more that I think about it, I really feel like that a fundamental news-based approach makes a bit more sense in futures anyways, because you're really talking about macro instruments. There's so many different things that can affect them, especially, man, the E-mini, you know? Like, if you're trading E-mini off of technicals, like, there's so much noise in the individual stocks that really any kind of technical pattern that you might think that you see in the E-mini, especially on a short-term chart, might be just complete nonsense, you know? But if you have some sort of a fundamental driver, for instance, like a good example was back at the lows, positive news about Remdesivir. We know that the market always reacts really well to good news about vaccines and therapeutic treatments for coronavirus, right? That would be a great thesis to take along. And then what do you use the technicals for? Well, the technicals give you a good idea of the context still. You know, like I don't think that you can go down and you can say that when this moving average is crossed over here, that means that you have a high probability of it going up to here and, you know, or when you see this chart pattern, it means that we're going to go up. I think all of everything that I've seen and then I've back tested tells me that past price has an unreliable uh, impact on future price. So it's not really a very good trade to trade off of that stuff. But it doesn't mean that the technicals are worthless, because what the technicals can tell you is, oh, hey, on average, from the most recent price action, a price is relatively low. And ergo, if you got a news story that makes you believe that we're going to move up really well, then this is a really great place to take it because you're getting a good price. And technicals can help you see that. Or technicals could help you say, like, you know, we just crossed the moving average and you got a news story that says to you, hey, you've got some momentum in your favor and you're still relatively early in the trend. So maybe that's a good trade. So, and same with order flow. You know, if we got a news story and I see, you know, something in the order flow that's helping to back that up, that gives me a good entry, then those things help. And so, especially with the order flow, I think the order flow is important because, you know, where you click and getting filled and everything matters a lot, right? So that's why I still think DOM trading is important. But these days, when I get into trade, and the thing that's been working really well for me is when I get into trade, or like I was thinking about it yesterday. Here's my qualification. If I can explain the trade to my wife, and it makes sense after I explain the fundamentals involved with it, then that's a trade that I can take. If I come in and I can say, well, because these two moving averages crossed each other, and this is an engulfing candle, and but she wouldn't understand any of that stuff, right? Oh my. Okay, I need to take a water break here really quick. We still got 20 minutes. So stick, you ask me, you got some other questions here, probably. Like, now's a good time to ask them, and then I come back. So I'll be right back. He says, okay, now that Seth is gone, let's get in his office and rearrange everything. Oh, hey, you know what? So everybody's up. Hold on a second. We are. Boom, 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 boom. We only moved one thing and you have to identify it. Was it the Baby Yoda picture? You have better have gone to get the baby. I went and got the baby. Look. Look right there. Right there. There. Look at you. It's you. He's more interested in the Dom. He's like, okay, Seth, where are we? Where are we? Well, I told you yesterday we were at 3112, and you can see that today, right now, we're at 3150, which was kind of where that Trump news came out. So that's good. And above 3150, I feel pretty confident. And I know cute kids. He is big. He's a big boy. He's gonna be taller than me, I think. He got the normal sized jeans. See if I can get him to make funny noises. Hey, Asher. Asher. Oh, you drooling all over. Hold on. Ew. His drool. Gross. Look at me. Hey. I'm more interested in the microphone. Hey. This is going to take him a second. Look at everything before he decides that I'm more interesting. He does. I've been looking, like they say, okay, how can you tell if your child is autistic? Then they're not interested in faces. He's definitely interested in faces, but I tell you, his interest is kind of like transitory. Like he'll be really interested in interacting with you, and then it's like, oh, but I would rather touch the keyboard. That's what he's thinking about. He's like, I want to type again. He was doing some typing yesterday. I want you to make noises for them. Can you make a noise? You go, rawr. Hmm? Apparently not. He has your earthquake face. How old is he? He is 4 months now. Coming on 5, I guess. I guess it's 5 months now. He looks like he needs to be kissed on the neck. I like to try and he's just not so into it right now. He's like, there's so much going on. Yeah, you're not used to being in here when the market's moving, right? See, look at them going up right there. You see him moving? You're like, yeah, I don't really care. Are you getting much sleep? Yeah, you know what? My wife handles most of that. So move over here a little bit so you can see him better. Hey. Rawr. Go right there into the microphone. No, can you touch it? See, what he really wants is he wants to touch the keyboard. I know you. I can see it in your eye. Hey, Dad, I want to be a typist. Again. We open up that. So we don't want anything bad to happen. There, you want to type now? There you go. Good job. Oh look, he decided to save a document. He's reaching for a buy order, right? Cancel. Okay, Mike says he's got a question. Shoot. Don't shoot me, but shoot your question. Shoot your shot. Okay. Oh, what do you think about orders at price? Okay, so are you talking about this whole thing where there's a new way of transmitting the data from Rhythmic that will show you how big the actual lot size, the actual orders are in the queue? Yeah. So you could say you would be able to determine how many actual orders there are and how big each one is, and you could detect if it was an exchange side iceberg, right? Gotta go. Oh, you're going camping this weekend. We'll have fun. We gotta get mark your calendar for sorry, when is it? Blim 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 blim. We go up into the Uventas to watch the meteor shower, and that is on August 14th and 15th. So mark your calendar. Maybe we'll do something. Yeah, not even just how many orders are at each price, which has been around for. Not even that, just how many orders are at each price, which has been around for like 3 or 4 years. Okay, yeah. So here's the thing. Because they've been going through this with Jigsaw about should they have MBO data. The thing that you gotta realize is like in NinjaTrader, the way that it works is every time that there is a change in the level 2, you will get the event fires. And then you could potentially do something with it that you wanted to do with your indicators and stuff, right? Well, the way that it works is the piece of data that you get is there's been a change. The value at 3153 is now 274, for instance. Okay. And that's how it works. And so you actually have to build like your own order book and put the data in there and update it and everything else like that. And that's what's going on behind the scenes with the application. Okay. When you're doing market by order, it's going to go in and it's going to say, okay, an order was added or removed. Instead of giving you, this is what the new amount is there, it's going to give you the change to an individual order. And so you have to add it to that thing to determine what the size at that price is, right? So from the perspective of what you're doing programmatically and how you keep track of things and the data structure that you have underneath, it's actually a significant change. And so especially for an application that's been around for a long time, like NinjaTrader, you have to change a lot of stuff to use that. And then the question becomes on MBO, is it really worth it? And that's the whole thing, is that pretty much everybody other than Rhythmic and I guess now Bookmap have decided that it's not worth it. So I think that in particular for a retail trader, how big the individual orders are on the queue and how many orders there are on the queue probably isn't all that useful to you. For an algorithm that's trying to determine why it is or isn't getting filled, there's some analysis that they could potentially do that could be useful. But for humans, I'm just not convinced that it just looks like a lot of noise again. But again, you're talking to somebody that thinks that, overall, most of the technical information that we look at doesn't really tell us anything, because past performance is not indicative of future results, right? But the one thing that apparently you can do with MBO data is you can determine if an order was was placed as a stop order at the exchange, and I really want to know that, because I want to see are there things about when it moves and you can see that there's clearly a lot of stop orders or not. Like, I want to study that. I don't know if there's actually any real use to it, but I want to do it. And right now you don't have access to it. So I would like to see that. I think that Peter Davies from Jigsaw still disagrees, and I think they were going to have was it this week? Or maybe they already had it, that they were going to have a webinar on, they were going to talk about that. But overall, I don't think it's a huge deal. I feel like orders of price number could be useful for notes and bonds. I asked a few years ago if they would display it. Yeah, they've talked to them. I'm just not sure how, I suppose maybe they're like, if the number of orders compared to the number of lots on there was like a ratio, and you could look at the average and see if it was significantly different than what it normally is. Maybe that could tell you something. I don't know. Like, I'm going to guess, though, that it probably doesn't deviate a whole lot, Okay. Goldman Sachs spots an ominous terminating point in the U.S. coronavirus pandemic. Oh, Arizona cases rise 3.7% in line with previous 7-day average. So again, as we've been saying with the coronavirus cases, seeing the numbers come in close to in line with the 7-day average is consistent with the theory that we are at the peak of cases, and that going into next week they will decline. Because normally on a Friday we would tend to see them much higher than the 7-day average. Okay, are you done? Do you want to go back and see Mom? It sounds like you need a little cough. He hasn't made any cute noises for you guys, though. What if I do this? He's smiling, but he's not making noises. You don't understand? Look at the camera. Do you see yourself over there? Huh. Okay, let me give him back to Mom. Let's see here. Mike says you're with an equity prop firm currently? Well, okay. FX Macro pointing out that Arizona hospitalizations have peaked. Okay. Well, yeah. Now the interesting thing is that according to what I've been seeing, some proposals from the NASDAQ and a change that they're making, is that we're going to be getting like real level 2 for all equities now, which is going to be a big change for us. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to learn things about order flow. But I'm just, kind of the larger thing you got to understand that I've been basing my trading off of lately is that really the fundamental news and everything is really changes everything. And it's in most cases trying to decipher what the current mode of the market is in terms of how the order flow moves and how the technicals move is not really that useful, because the news is going to come in and it's going to be more significant than any of that. They say order numbers at price can give you an idea of the probability to uptick or downtick, i.e. less orders on one side versus other decreases the possibility of a move in that direction. This is related to equities, though I would think that it would apply to futures as well. Probably. Yeah, because if you have like for instance, in the 10-year right now, there's 2186 at 12.5. But 1,000 of that could be one order. And if that order pulls, then they're probably going to trade through it, right? So it can kind of tell you some things. But I think the way that they're using this data and the reason why it exists is because the robot can come in and they can say, okay, where actually am I in the queue? And if you have market by order data, then you know which order is yours, and you can see the queue in everybody that's in front of you. And so you'll know exactly how likely you are to get filled, especially if there's orders and you know that those orders are likely to pull. So I think that that's why they use it. But again, I'm saying that like this is something that's like really pertinent if you're like an algorithm that's going to try and just take a tick or something like that, and your edge is your ability to get close to the front of the queue, then that sort of stuff matters. But for a retail trader where you basically have to assume that you're at the back of the queue every time, is it like really going to make a huge difference in your trading? Probably not. And that's where I think that Jigsaw, I wish that Peter Davies would acknowledge that like it's a cool thing and we want to do it, but now is maybe not the right time. And it might be interesting to see what we could see if you could detect stop orders, but we have higher priorities right now. That's what I wish he would say, because I do think that they're right to prioritize other things like the charts that they've been talking about, right? That having charts in Jigsaw is way more important. So I don't know. But I'm still, even with order flow, I'm realizing that, hey, you know what order flow helps with? And sitting and just watching order flow and trading just off of order flow for a long time has been an interesting experience. I've had some periods where I made good money with it, and I've had some periods where it didn't, where I just kind of did okay. But I think that the advantage of it is that you know where to execute. Right there in the ZB, or sorry, ZN, there was an 8K iceberg at 13. So depending on whether you wanted to buy or sell, you can kind of make some decisions just based off of that. Hey, there's an iceberg there, and it looked like they were, he wanted to be filled. So that's a good place to get long and see if you can catch the edge. And right now you have, right? Right now you've caught the edge and you have 800 to 1,000 stacked on you. That's about as good of a setup as you're going to get. And look, now the next price is going, so I can hold it and I can let it run. But when that initial thing happened and it was, I just had 800 stacked on me, what was the probability that it was going to tick up again at 13.5? It was a probability, quite frankly, that it's going to tick back down. I don't know. It might tick right back down here in a second, for all I know. And that's because the past action really isn't indicative of what's going to happen in the future, right? Somebody could come in and all of a sudden just want to buy for no explainable reason. And there's literally no way that I could predict that. But does that mean that the order flow was useless? No, because the order flow showed me as a place where I have an edge in getting in. That's where the value in the DOM is. And especially if you realize that, okay, the thing that really moves us is how news affects markets' expectations of the future. Well, when the news hits, you're going to need to know where to click to be able to get executed. So understanding the DOM and being able to execute on the DOM in fast action becomes really important, right? So that's the way that I look at it, at least right now. But this is coming from going through testing many different edges and finding kind of some edges in just pure order flow, and then seeing those edges kind of become inconsistent and come back, and doing a lot of studies with technical analysis and back testing numerous systems from education that people have sent me or that other people have told me worked for them, and finding out that the historical reliability isn't nearly as good as they think it is. At some point, when I started going through and trying to develop a model of the market, I realized that, it's not that this stuff doesn't matter. It's that it's such a small part of what's actually going on that you're never going to have any consistency if you're just trading off of just that. So then it becomes, okay, what I should really be trading off of is the news. That's the thing that will give you consistency. And the order flow and the technicals just mean that you'll trade that, move better, right? But it's not the reason that you took the trade. That's my take. Okay, so I probably have time for like another question, but I have a meeting at 9:45, so I should check. I haven't checked the Discord for a bit. What were they saying here in the lobby? Robinhood has allured young traders, sometimes with devastating results. Oh yeah, I read that one. That was the one that I posted earlier. Oh, maybe not. It's a different article. I tell you what, another thing, if I ran here, just waiting if you can have another question before I gotta go. But another thing that I've learned about the markets is that if, say, you're going to have a trend, the earlier you get into the trend, the better, right? So the problem with a lot of technical analysis is that by the time it's able to call that there really is a trend and that you should get in, well, everybody else knows that too, and so you might be the last one to get in. Because honestly, by the time the trend has actually shown up with the technicals and the technical analysis readers are seeing it, the pros have probably already gotten in and are taking their profits. So I say, you don't want to follow the crowd. You want the crowd to follow you. That's how I take it. And so when I see, it makes me happy to see that people are trading and stuff, but when I see the stuff that's going on in the stories and all the stuff that goes on Wall Street's bets and stuff, I don't like it. I don't like it because that immediately says, there's the crowd and that's what they're doing. I don't want to do that. What's the one thing that the crowd hates? From my experience, there's one thing. Thanks for the color on order. Yeah, no problem. There's one thing that if I go on to a Facebook group or a forum and I assert, that will probably excite people more than anything else, and that is technical analysis doesn't work and you should trade off of news. That you get a lot of people that will argue with you on that because the crowd doesn't believe that. And that alone is probably a good reason to trade the news. Because honestly, who here believes that the news doesn't affect markets? We all know it does. We've all seen Donald Trump tweet and watch the market move 50 points, right? So Okay, well, it is time for me to get going. I will see you guys on Monday. Hopefully I have some time to record some videos this week, but I think we're going to be doing the chicken coop. And again, news is the catalyst, but orders and liquidity react to it, right? Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. No, you're totally right, Smash the Bid. It's not like the technicals and the liquidity matter. I just don't think that they have predictive qualities. So I think you need to incorporate all of it. But I think that the reason for the trade should be fundamental in nature. That's all. Yeah, I think I might be building chicken coops. I don't know if we'll be able to have a new video for money. Plus, we posted a video on Wednesday, but there's a couple of things that we can make. Maybe I'll make one about the multi-period candles. That would be good because a lot of people ask me questions about that. And of course, my prediction is that we'll close above 31.12, which was a prediction that I made yesterday when we were at 31.12. Looking good so far. Maybe I have a little bit of luck involved in that, though. But you'll hold me to it, right? If I'm wrong, then don't let me live it down. So I'll see you guys next week. And in the meantime, stay profitable, friends.